Welcome to the Knowledge for Men show. Your life will never be the same.
Your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development.
I want to die empty of regret. I want to die empty of my best work. We don't understand who we are. Instead, we're living out somebody else's narrative.
What one man can do, another man can do. If it's been done, it can be done again.
Being yourself and being your truest, most authentic self in every moment. If it scares you or makes you a little afraid, do it. Follow your heart and your gut.
The first stage, I think, is finding you, like finding out who I am today.
Stuff will not work. You will have things that fail. Success is when you're a happy, fulfilled person. How do you define success?
It's your life, and you are the creator of the movie script that is your life story.
Attention, if you are a frustrated man who feels like he is not getting the results he wants in his life, health, wealth, relationships, and personal growth, then I've got a powerful free video training for you to help you become a strong, grounded man so you can unlock unlimited power in your life, business, and relationships. Go to kfmconfidence.com to get instant access to this training. Again, that's kfmconfidence.com. If you want a Cliff Notes version of the best material that I've learned after 300 interviews on this podcast about being a stronger, more powerful man, then it's all here at kfmconfidence.com. All right, guys, welcome to the show. I'm here with Geoff Blades. His story is really interesting. He went from working at KFC to becoming a VP at Goldman Sachs on Wall Street, then had a major epiphany and made a massive life change. And I'll let him share that story. But Geoff, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
All right, and Geoff, we start off every show with a favorite success quote or a saying that you've lived by. So what do you got for us, and what does that mean to you?
Yeah, the quote that I use, and it's the one I open both of my books with, is Ralph Waldo Emerson. Do not go where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail. And what that means to me is some years ago when all this work started for me, I was setting off on this new path without any idea where I was headed, only where I was leaving from. And at the time, I had a girlfriend who was very supportive. And even though she could see this path was leading somewhere else, she bought me this compass. And on the back of that compass, she had inscribed that quote. And so when I was charting that course, I just kept that in front of me for years. And I used that to kind of light a way that I couldn't see, if that makes sense.
And so you're at KFC serving chicken, right? Or you're cooking the chicken. What was the role here?
This was my first major epiphany. I had three major, we could jump more into my story. I know it's on your list.
Yeah, let's do it.
There's three major phases of my story. My first phase is growing up poor, working at KFC and working in factories and seeing that, man, I didn't even know what it was to be rich. Like, I didn't even, it wasn't like I was looking at people driving Mercedes thinking, man, I could be that. Where I grew up, you didn't have that, right? Like, it was more like I just saw there was this life that people were living that was monotonous and mundane. And I just believed there had to be something more, even though I had no idea what that was. And that was the first epiphany. At 16, I woke up in school. It was like this bolt of lightning that said, you know what, you can have more, and the way to get there is through your education. And it literally just struck me like that I was lucky, and it was in the last years of school, and I realized that if I studied hard, that I could actually, even though I'd never been serious about school, I hated school, I was bored of it, but I saw that was my path, and I could actually take some major leap, even though I had no idea what that was.
And so you take down the path of education, you do well, you find yourself in Goldman Sachs, and you're climbing the ladder, doing great, and what happened next?
You hit it, man. That's second phase, right? Second turn. I'm a kid. I believe that money and financial security brings me freedom. I get to Goldman Sachs, and I think it's all good. I think the most amazing life I can imagine will be created through this, because the philosophy was get the best job that you can. Get the best job you can, work hard, create your most amazing life. It always made sense. And then you know what happened? I moved to Menlo Park, California. I got this plum transfer at Goldman Sachs to the internet banking group, technology, in 1999. And then the internet bubble burst. Boom! Overnight, this career track that looked amazing looked horrific. Half my office was fired. They closed down the office ultimately. My compensation was slashed, more than half, about a third of what I was expecting. And the career just looked bleak. And really what they did, Andrew, though, was the biggest story, man, was it bubbled up all the other stuff. Because what I realized was there was this illusion that I was living by that today I call 20 and done. And a lot of career professionals live this illusion. It's, man, when I get my money, when I make my money, what's your number? Then I'm going to quit and I'll be done and I'll travel the world and do my thing. And this deferred living plan that we all live by, I came to see was completely false. Not only was it false, but that it had been driving me so much because I didn't even know it was there. And that's when I stepped back, and that was that phase. And I started all of this work back in 2000. I said, what do I want and how do you get it?
Wow. And so what is the 20 and done? Are you saying you stop living after you hit a certain age because you start following this societal?
This is where it gets, and this is where my work sounds obnoxious when I'm talking to people out in the real world. I come from a very humble background, but on Wall Street, 20 and done, and this is a Wall Street idea, which is on Wall Street, people are always creeping up to you, Andrew. I'm sure they do it everywhere in every career. And they say, hey, man, what's your number? How much money do you need to be done? Right? And on Wall Street, inevitably that number is 20. Man, if I had 20 in the bank with 20 million in the bank, earning this and that after taxes, I can be, doing this and do it. It's always some number. And if it's not 20 million on Wall Street, it's, $2 million somewhere else. But it's always the same formula, which is that life is somewhere out in front of you. If only, you can keep getting there. And what I realized years later, having started this work many years before, was that was the hidden illusion. I was just at an event for Ramit Sethi, and Ramit talks a lot about invisible scripts. That's the invisible script. And by the way, it's the invisible script of retirement. You get to 65 and then you can go live. And what I started to do in deconstructing that was ask all the same questions that I love in listening to your podcast and reading your website, which is, what do you want? And go after it and put it on the line, because you know what? You got one shot and there's that life and we all know what it is. We all have that vision, and it's a matter of, are you willing to go for it? Are you willing to risk it? Are you willing to take shots? Are you willing to get so good at it that you can keep failing, keep getting better, and eventually just keep moving towards what that is, that you love it for the journey as well, right?
Absolutely. And so did you quit the job and start your own path here, or did you keep the job at Goldman Sachs? What happens next?
There you go. So I started this work in 2000. I left Goldman in 2006. I spent 6 years on this. And one of the things I talk to people a lot about careers, they say, well, I just got to leave and figure it out. I say, I've done that. But even before I did that, I took 5+ years of reading books and thinking and planning and making 3 job moves at Goldman, putting more money in the bank, reading a bunch of books, collecting a green card. Really and if my philosophy and my approach is very much build a system. Focus on that goal, pick the end goal and build a system and work it and keep working it until you get there. And that takes years, because if you've got a real goal, it's so damn big, man, you can't even see you certainly can't see the end. But build a system and just keep working it. And that's what I started to do, which is I started to say, look, I have no idea where I'm headed, but I know one thing. Wherever you're headed, you're getting there from where you are right now. And we make it really complicated. We say, what do we want? What do I want? And you think all these things, but in the end, there's only one thing that matters. What's that step right in front of you? Because that thing 2 years down the road, you only get there by that step right in front of you. And one of the things I appreciate in your philosophy too is the power of action. And, over years and years and years, and, we can get to some of the formulas that I built as well. But over years of this, what I've come to believe is that the formula looks something like constant conditioning of the mind and constant action. And to be able to do both of those things at the same time is literally all about very small steps every day. So can you take this massive vision, really forget about it every day, and then just define that action that's right in front of you?
Yeah, absolutely. And so what I'm getting from you is it's not entirely here about burning the boats, where it's just quit your job and just hope for the best. but you started 5 years before you actually left. You were putting in the work, educating your mind, figuring out things that work and don't work before you actually made that leap. So you kind of reduced the risk.
Absolutely. I definitely reduced the risk. I learned a lot more along the way. And also in doing it that way, I was able to clear out a lot of the stuff that was ultimately me. Right? See, this is the thing that we realize only years after doing this, is that one of the things I talk about in a little bit is, what's the number one reason most people will never get what they want? They're not thinking about it. They're focused on what they don't want. They go to work, they're saying, this sucks, man. I don't want to be here anymore. They're not paying me right. My girlfriend didn't do this for me. But they constantly fill their mind with what they don't want versus flipping that to, well, what do I want? And I needed to do that work. Part of the reason, Andrew, I left Goldman was I still hadn't figured out what I wanted. But I knew that I'd pushed the question far enough and that I'd figured out what I didn't want. And so I left. And I took 18 months off away from Wall Street to focus on all this stuff full time. And even then, that was only this next phase. And I went back to Wall Street. And then I ultimately left to do what I do today.
Wow. And so it seems like the process that has worked well for you is the constant education, constant learning, constant growing with the consistent action. If we can enjoy the journey and enjoy the path, then we can stay on the path. That's what I'm putting together here. How can we enjoy the journey more rather than almost punishing ourselves for not achieving the grand goal yet?
It's a great question. It's a great question, and it's one that I work on a lot for myself, and it's one that I work on with a lot of clients. And it's a problem that, if I step back, I say, what do? I build custom solutions for people to get what they want, and that's often three things. One is conditioning their minds. And that's hard, right? That's years and years of stuff that I figured out on how do you really condition your mind to go for what you want? And two is building processes. Three is building the skills that it takes to do that.
Got it. And during that process, if we're working on that and we're able to start enjoying the journey, it seems like it's not so much of a chore. It's not so much of this tedious thing that we have to wake up and have to do, but rather we can start getting to do it. And I just think if we can enjoy the process that it takes to achieve our goals, then we can be much more successful in the long run, likely to achieve the goal.
I agree. And look, the complexity of this getting there concept, there's complexity to it because it's actually a program in the brain, if you will, right? Which is to be an ambitious person. By definition, you have to say there's something out there that I don't currently have. And often an ambitious person in the body, they create an unmet need, a feeling. It's always a feeling that we're chasing. And so what happens is we say, hey, I want that grandest vision. And then you say, well, what do you get through having that? And ultimately, it's a feeling. And so, Andrew, what you're playing around with is stuff that I believe to be is very, very simple, yet takes some real conditioning, which is you're saying, hey, no matter what it is that you want, it's really just a feeling. And so the notions of succeeding and fulfillment are very much sequential in our thinking, which is, hey, when I get that, I'll feel that way. And what you said before, I believe wholeheartedly, and I know to be true, which is actually, but to get that, you want to feel that way now. So if you want to feel confident because you've met an amazing woman, for instance, well, you better feel confident in order to meet that woman. And so this notion of bringing forward the feeling, one of my teachers calls the end state, which is as much as you can rehearsing the feeling of that ultimate end state. Does that make sense? Do you know where I'm coming from?
Yeah, you're giving yourself the feelings or the emotions now rather than later after having achieved or hopefully achieved something.
And exactly, and infusing it into the process. So the process feels like the outcome, right? Because as you said, which is, if you go deep or even shallow deep, you say, look, everything, it's all the now. We know all that. So there's no future. It's all the now. So if you reduce it down to this moment, you say, well, hey, when I get that amazing car, It'll feel so awesome. I'm driving along the 10. I'm in LA. I'm driving along the 10. The sun's breaking out in the morning. I'm switching gears. It'll feel awesome. And then you say, great, well, I'm working on what it takes to get that. So if this doesn't feel that awesome, then how will it feel awesome to have the car? And this is what I call, Andrew, I built a lot of formulas because I needed to build them for myself and for high achieving people. This I call the formula. What is the formula? Which is, hey, whatever it is you want in the future, feel it now and infuse that feeling into your process and then drive more process specific goals as well, like the flow state. So make the process itself the end goal, right? So for instance, for me, for writing, a lot of people who write or do very hard things know what it's like to suffer from resistance. We all know that, right? And that resistance is a feeling that says, oh, whatever it is, your taxes or writing or approaching a woman or whatever it might be. And the key is, how do you get yourself beyond that resistance? Well, you've got to actually, if you say, well, the resistance comes from the outcome, from a negative projection of an outcome. This writing's going to be hard, or even if I get it done, then I might face criticism, or I approach a woman, I get rejected. So you try and condition, well, the successful outcome feels that way, bring the state forward. The second thing you do, though, is make the process itself the outcome. Hey, I'm just going up to have a fun conversation. Or, hey, I'm working on my goals, and that itself is awesome. Because you know what? There ain't no there. There ain't no future. There ain't no... See, this is what I learned, Andrew, and I think I'm a really good case study for this, brother, which is I went from KFC to Goldman Sachs to feel the same fucking way, which is, what do I want? Right? What do I want? To writing the book that I just wrote, which is the first book I wrote was for Wall Street, but to writing one that's like, look, 65% of us hate our jobs, and we're the lucky ones. There are people in Africa who are mining for diamonds with people with a gun behind them, dreaming of living in America and living this amazing life we have, where 65% of us hate our jobs. And it's bad, it's wrong. We can do better than this. But how do we do better? No one ever teaches us to do better.
Wow. I went from KFC to Goldman Sachs, and I felt the same. That's a powerful tagline right there. And so what I'm getting here, it's almost like a hack where if we can make the process itself the success, where we can pull gratification and fulfillment in the process, then we can keep going. Then we don't give up. Because we're having success along the way rather than giving and granting ourselves permission to be a success, whether we achieve it at the end or not. And what I think is ironic about that is if you stay on the journey, because if you enjoy it, then you're likely to succeed. I think that's just very well put. And
well, notice as well, so in NLP, I'm a big fan of NLP. In NLP, even the whole word success, right, is what's called a nominalization. It's a process that's been turned into an event, right? So we define success like when I get what? What? And there's no such definition. Today we celebrate a kid graduating preschool. Oh, he's successful. And you keep hitting on it, and I know it's a theme that runs through all of your work and ideas, is it's all about the journey. What I did was I turned the question, what do I want, into the journey. And so my answer after many years of thinking was there ain't no answer. You're not going to wake up and say, this is what I want. Instead, you keep pulling the thread, focusing on what's right in front of you, staying absorbed in this step today, feeling fulfilled, loving it, going after it, taking action. And the journey itself is you answering the question. Because I think it's the answer to the retirement model, right? Which is, the retirement model is you get to 65, you retire, you go live this, but your body's all busted up. And it worked okay when your job was to work the land or to screw a bolt into a wheel. But I didn't retire when I left Goldman. I left to do whatever I wanted. But what I realized quickly is we're not searching I don't believe many people want to sit on the beach. I believe we want to find what we really love to do every day that's meaningful and fulfilling and do it. And I believe we want to be absorbed in it. It's like Tim Ferriss lives, right? Like, yeah, he preaches the 4-hour work week, but what does he live? Which is this like maniacal approach to living and to really being into what you're into. and then you do it for the rest of your life. And so this idea of success is idea in NLP it's a false idea versus saying, hey, how many ways can you see you're already succeeding? And how do you define it? Hey, if I took action today, did I have a successful day? And you find all the ways that feel good so you can keep giving yourself that pat on the back, man, because no one else is, right? Like, give yourself all the ways to feel like you're already successful because you're already taking the journey, and then take more actions and make it self-reinforcing.
It's very powerful. How do you think most people define success for themselves?
Oh, man, they're stuck in the getting there. They're stuck in the getting there based on when they hit this thing that somebody put in their head. Maybe they put in their head. You know, like the hidden thing for me, crap, I've worked ferociously, I make some money, I ride off into the sunset, I'm 35, 40, wow, right? Like I had this thing in my head. And my belief is that most people have something in their head, whether it be, you know, it's marriage or it's the first job, or it's, by the way, like the Rolex at 27, or like there's something that we all have in our head. And I think you're hitting on it, which is why all my work is branded, do what you want. What is success to me? Doing what you want, whatever that is, you know, as long as you're not hurting people.
Right. Of course.
Right?
Of course. And so what do you think happens if we don't do this? If we just keep chasing that thing? We're like, okay, this was a good episode. Got me thinking a little bit differently, but I'm still going to be chasing this thing. Like, what would happen to that individual if we fast forward 10, 15, 20 years and they're still chasing that perfect woman or the perfect job or an X, you know, the you call it 20 and done or 10 and done, specific number? What happens if they keep doing that?
See, Andrew, this is the dichotomy, and this is where this stuff gets hard, because I stand for two different things, right? Which is that person you're describing will be me, because I'm constantly striving to live this most magnificent life, right? And here's the only tiny, tiny difference, is that you don't do it believing that something will ever change. Right? So you don't do it believing when you've made your money, suddenly you know, everything is going to be rosy and you're going to feel amazing and, you know, life is profound and you found the answers. It's more that, to me, what I believe is that if you can remove those illusions, then you get in touch with your real motivation. And the real challenge is this: if you remove a lot of that, call it, you know, motivations like getting there is, hey, so for instance, right, we know the real motivator behind money for a lot of people is to feel significant. And you don't want to feel significant unless you don't really feel significant, right? So if you say to that person, well, feel significant now. And then they say, well, why would I want the money, right? Because they're using that negative gap, if you will, to create their motivation. But if you say, hey, feel significant now, how do you feel? Feel amazing. Well, you don't want to just sit around and do nothing, do you, when you feel amazing? You're going to take the action anyway, but you take the action from a different intention. So what you said is right on, which is, look, that person will be me. If I'm alive long enough, I'll still be chasing my most amazing life. But hopefully I keep deepening these teachings, because I'll be very honest with you, I've trained with the best hypnotists in the world. And I don't believe that there's some magic pill where you program this stuff into your head. What I believe is that you train it every day and you condition it like you train and condition your biceps. It's part of the journey that you strengthen your skillfulness at living. And part of that is to say, hey, I'm chasing the most amazing version of my life, but I know that if I can't feel full, whole, complete today, or whatever your phrase is, or fulfilled today, or whole, or whatever your phrase is, then the rest is an illusion. You're never going to, look, I've had it. I've had the sports car. I've had the hot woman. I've, I still ski for seasons. I do what I want. I live where I want, right? Like, if I can't feel fulfilled now, when will I? And if we can't feel fulfilled in America, how the heck will the guy in Africa? Because these are all illusions in the head, right? Like, this is the whole thing with equality and the 1%, the 99%. It's all false, because we all want the same thing. And the 99% here is no different. You know, some dude in Africa, he's the 99% and they're the 1%. It's all perspective. And the perspective is that fullness. You're really hitting on it with your fulfillment stuff.
Yeah, I think that's why drugs and alcohol can be so elusive and so tempting when we're going after this thing and we're making progress and we're actually hitting our goals, but we're feeling very unfulfilled. And the drugs and alcohol can make us feel happier in that short-term moment. It's the instant gratification. And it could be a never-ending cycle, it feels like. Just constantly pursuing goals, hitting goals, not feeling gratified, not feeling like you're worthy of success.
So I'm really into some of the stuff that Tony Robbins does, in particular some of the really simple frames that he uses. And I really like the frame of pain and pleasure. And I listened to a podcast the other day that James Altucher did, and he called it, it seems like so many successful people are always battling the mind. And, it was Cal Newport, who's all about this deep work, right? Getting beyond the mind. And I think that you're really playing around with these potent topics, which is until you're able to harness the mind and get beyond that stuff. And I happen to believe that what we're really talking about, if you want to be honest about it, is only and always one thing, my friend: fear. Just has different names: stress, overwhelm, confusion, uncertainty, don't know what I want. And we put it all up there, and it allows us to keep looking for things that aren't already inside of us. We keep looking for a reason that we're not feeling fulfilled versus saying, hey, I can feel fulfilled now just by saying, what's that feeling? What is that feeling? What does it feel like? I mean, really go there, man. I mean, honestly, if you want to do it, it's fun. Like, what is that feeling when you feel so fulfilled?
I feel like happiness. I feel joy. I feel pleasure. I feel like just the feeling of hard work paying off. Like I feel
there you go.
Like worthy. I feel like I did it.
There you go. And so if you come back to that notion that you said before about drugs and alcohol, right? The Tony frame, pleasure and pain. Look, here's the truth of it. And this is the whole battle in the mind and where it gets hard, man, is that to go for what you want is hard. To escape waking up every day and putting on your khakis and blue shirt and dropping by Starbucks and having the same lunch every day and creating your own trail to do what you want is hard. In the same way that going to the gym is hard, to get stronger is hard. But at the gym, you get this natural endorphin, you get this natural payoff, and the payoff you also get is visual often. And to use that very simple pain and pleasure, if it's hard to do the work, if it's hard to advance the ball, if it just feels like every day is hard, the brain's going to look for a payoff. And drugs and alcohol, I'll be very honest with you, I think they have their place. And a lot of people in my world, NLP, hypnotists, they're very against, our medicated society. And so am I. We overprescribe ADHD and depressions and all. We overprescribe it. But in the end, these are tools. And what are they? They're tools to teach the brain to find pleasure. And I believe that part of what we're talking about is finding pleasure in the striving. If guys like John Wooden, like the people who teach excellence, they teach just, the mundanity of excellence type stuff, like just truly finding pleasure in the activity itself of getting better, of absorbing 20 minutes longer and being satisfied with that itself. And by the way, I would tell you, in all seriousness, for everyone listening, this stuff is hard. I do what I do because this stuff is hard, right? Like I'm conditioning my brain all the time. And I believe I'm on the cutting edge of these topics because I think they're really hard. But I believe that there's an answer in here that I discovered when I was skiing. But I'm going to stop because I feel like I'm running on too long, man.
You're great. You're great. What would you say are some of the daily habits that would make someone more successful at this, staying on the journey, staying on the path?
I think these are really hard questions because you have to be just a lunatic, in my opinion. My view is that in order to really, truly go for it, you look at men like Elon Musk, you look at men like Thomas Edison and Henry Ford. I wrote a book on Donald Trump, and not politically because I hate politics, but I was just so enamored by this dude who stood up, who wasn't a politician, who just demolished the rest of the field. And what I think is just so fascinating is if you look at any of these people who do exceptional things, you have to break down what it is that leads them to be excellent. The problem on this topic of daily habits and rituals and morning rituals is what makes someone else successful may not make you successful. And honestly, a lot of highly successful people haven't done them. But if you want to engineer success yourself, my view is that you need to do two things. One is you need to create a system. All of my work, Andrew, and it seems to me yours is too, creating systems, powerful systems. You want to create two systems. One is a system for conditioning the mind, and that's what I call daily exercises. And I call it the system of your limitless mind, which is conditioning the mind every day. What's your process? My process is hypnosis, NLP, meditation, some forms of affirmations that I built for myself, but specific tools that I've come across that I use. And then the second system is for action. Remember I said right up front, I said, hey, in all of my work and all of my systematizing, it comes back to mind and action. If you can get your mind in the right place and take the right action and systematize both, so you're just kind of doing every day and you're not thinking and you're not stalling, you're not letting fear and the monkey mind get in the way. See, at least what I believe about doing hard things. See, all my clients and me, I only do hard things, right? It's not about work. Look, work hard, get a job, work hard. That's not hard, right? Anyone can work hard. It's hard to figure out how do you build a business. It's hard to figure out how do you excel in your job, truly win in your job. And when you step back and do hard things, it often comes back to getting very systematic about how you think. So that's the system for the mind and the actions you take. What hard things are you willing to do? And systems, by the way, Andrew, just to be more specific, I'm not being fancy, dude. I'm talking stuff like, Brian Tracy, eat that frog. A system for time management is do your hard stuff early in the morning, but really systematize your mind and programming and conditioning and actions. Now, not everyone needs this stuff. Some people are great at it. I personally needed it to transform myself to do what I do.
And what would you say are the most common mistakes that most people make when they try this?
Honestly, is that most of the stuff out there is not good enough. Is that they find themselves, I'll give you an example, and I don't want to be derogatory towards anyone because I'm not being specific, but towards a process like journaling, right? I met with an executive last week and I said and he was big on morning rituals. He's trained with some big guys and whatnot. And he said to me, well, what would you do differently? I said, I don't know. Tell me what's your morning ritual? What's your goals? What's your process? And he started talking about journaling. And I said, what do you get out of that? And he said, it just gets all my thoughts out of my head and I feel like I've just got it out on paper. And I said, how do you feel after that? He said, usually pretty crap. And I said, that's because often when people journal, they think they journal. People who are happy don't usually think these thoughts. So people who journal are typically in a negative state. They write down all their negative state. They deepen the state. And so if you're going to journal, the trick is that you've always got to journal your way out of it. Hey, I woke up feeling crap, and then I thought to myself, you know what? Today's another amazing day, and every day I'm in charge of my state. So your journaling really becomes programming. So if you're doing that, create programming. But my point, so my specific example, the inductive answer is, look, man, I think this stuff is really hard to get right. In the same way that, look, walk around any gym, and 95% of the people you see will be in the same shape a year from today. Because doing it yourself is really hard. Honestly, finding other people to do it for you is just as hard as well. But that's where that just takes the persistence and the willingness to keep searching out better and better tools, better and better teachers. And dude, I think to just keep doing the work. I mean, everything I've read on you suggests that it's about the hustle. Look at even the books behind you, man, the bookshelf. It's like, do the work, just keep doing the work and keep getting better.
Geoff, I'm loving the, you're not discounting the hustle, and the hustle is so much a part of the journey. And it's like we want to do all these things except the hustle, except just get in the arena and trying to avoid how to get hit. But the truth is no matter what you do, you're gonna get hit. You're gonna get punched, no matter how much you train and try to avoid the punch. The punch is coming.
How do you deal with that?
Look, I find that the best way to make something happen is to go into it and accept that it's going to be hard. And it's like, I think a lot of people make halfway commitments where they say they're going to do something, but they're not yet prepared for the amount of suffering that thing is going to take in order to achieve the goal. So when I make decisions, like I don't mess around. Like it's like almost a spiritual thing where if I say I'm going to do something, like I'm really going to do it. And I don't make a lot of decisions Like I don't set a lot of big goals all the time. Like I have one on my wall and it's just one, and it's about building my team up right now. And that's all I'm focused on, and I'm all in, and I'm not going to stop until it's done. And I think too many people would have a list of like 15 goals, and they're halfway or 10% in that goal. And so when I commit, it's like spiritual almost, where like I'm gonna make this happen, and it's like I'm thinking about it. It's not like a quick decision. It's like, yes, I'm committed. I'm going to do this.
I love that.
Yeah, it's a full commitment to the goal, and I'm going to see it to its end, and I'm going to make it happen, and I'm going to get hurt and fail along the way, and I've accepted that.
I love that. Look, you just hit that skiing metaphor as well, which is that was where a lot of these topics, I investigated them in ways that I never had before, because when I was on Wall Street doing all this work, I figured, hey, when I quit my job, I'm going to be happy, right? When I quit my job, all the problems in my life are going to go away. I'm going to have time and money. I'll be doing what I want. And I felt the same way. And that was because I picked up a job that was just as hard. That was, well, much, much harder, much more stressful. I didn't know how to write. I was stuck in all these ways. I was doing things that I didn't know how to do. I was trying to answer questions that I didn't even know were wrong questions. I didn't even know what the right questions were. And there were, all of these things that made it hard. And what I realized from that was I left Los Angeles and I moved to Vail, Colorado, and I was skiing for the season. I was there to fix my head, literally to program the crap out of myself, to really keep driving this, to transform myself. And one of the things Andrew was right on was with the topic we're talking about, which is skiing every day. I said to myself, hey, you don't come out here and ski the easy stuff, right? Like I ski only the hard stuff. I ski the stuff that pushes me to the limit and beyond. If you're not falling, you're not skiing hard enough. If you're not popping jumps, you're not trying hard enough, right? Like you ski like crazy because that's where on your edge is why you're out there. You're not out there to hang out in the snow. You're out there because you want to push it. And if you're not all in, if you're not over the skis, if you're not square with the mountain, you're toast. And that's what's fun about it. And that's, Andrew, literally where I started all this stuff, which is, so how can my job feel the same way? It's so friggin' hard. It's so hard. I can't even write. I don't even know what to do with a book if I write it. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, it's so hard. Yeah, it can feel fun. So why can't it feel fun?
Yeah. I'm loving it. This is really making me happy to be on the journey. Just to be on the path. For me personally, I'm making more in this business than I ever have, but I feel exactly the same when I only had $15, $20, $50, $100, $200 in my bank. Because like you said, from KFC to it's not like I don't like this job. I love this job, and I'm saying that I don't love the job because I have money. I love the job because it's exactly what I quit my job to be doing, which was to just have these conversations and to read these books and to speak and write books and to just be on the path that I want to be on. Like I want to wake up and do this. I don't wake up and feel like I have to do this. Like I really look forward to this. And money has not played any role in my satisfaction or my joy in this. Of course it's nice. I'm not going to be like, I hate.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but do you use what sort of what sort of morning rituals or affirmations or programming devices do you use to do some of this stuff?
Yeah, so I wake up every morning typically. I'm not like a super early bird guy. It works for me. I don't have kids, so I'm waking up at about 8 and I take a cold shower. I exercise. I do push-ups. I do sit-ups. It's just a light exercise. I'm listening to an audiobook or motivational music. I have a green smoothie, and then I just go outside. I live here by the beach, and I'm kind of setting my intention for the day, but not really. I'm just looking at just the beautiful. I'm appreciating where I live and stuff like that. And then I already know what I'm going to do each day. Like the listeners can't see, but I have this daily calendar.
Can I just stop you there? See, because the only thing that I've heard kind of coming out in all of this that I think would be huge for you, and maybe this is inappropriate in this context, but would be huge in your process, is somewhere in between that. Notice you went from the present to the future, is literally rehearsing. And I like visual because I'm a hypnotist, and I also believe it's important to code it in the visual channel. but literally rehearsing just 5 minutes in the morning, the journey to date, and literally celebrating all of the most amazing feelings. See, what I believe is the body mind, for what it's worth, Andrew, is I got very deep into Eastern side thinking, and I believe that the body mind is merely a habitual machine. And so this is what I believe happens. You're in that old job, you feel a certain way, you say, hey, when I've got this, I'm making more money, I'll feel that way, right? But you felt that other way for so long that it left this habitual imprint in the body mind of the old machine, if you will, right? And part of your job today is to keep imprinting the greatest feelings over the top so that that becomes the new imprint. And you do that through a very simple exercise like the one I suggested, which is between the, man, it's beautiful, I'm on the beach, you do like a mental review of like, man, look where I've come from. And you celebrate every ounce of your success as much as you can. And then my other thing, for what it's worth, is a little bit nuts. But look, I live in nuts because my clients are already successful. They're already winning. When you're already winning, how do you take it all the way? I call them continuous practices. You run a drill like that all the time. As often as you can during the day, you just sit back and you say, hey, this is random, but what's the most amazing sense of fulfillment that I've ever had? And then you get something in your brain, you say, well, what did that really feel like? And you celebrate that feeling. And I believe this is what life is. Life is literally an experience of our past, current, future feelings. It's just a choice as to how we do it. Whether we go back and rehearse crap feelings, which we do all the time, go forward and rehearse crap feelings like fear and anxiety and worry, or we rehearse all the good stuff in our life. And I believe, honestly, man, you hit on it. It comes down to daily practices, what we rehearse every day.
Yeah, I like that. And that appreciation for the journey, it makes it feel like you are already a success and everything else is a bonus. And you feel a lot more free, like almost like these shackles, or there's just this big, like you've been carrying around like a big rucksack or backpack full of weights, and you're able to just move through your day much more free flow when you've given yourself permission to be a success now rather than later, which is what we've been talking about so much. But I like how we're talking about it being a daily practice, which is good.
Notice your word, feel. The only thing that changed in all that, come back to your topic of drugs and alcohol, right? The only thing that changed in all that was a feeling. The day is still the same. You're still doing the same stuff. So this is what I learned experimenting with drugs. I don't drink because I think the downside, the hangover, ain't worth the payoff, right? That's my view. But, what I learned from years of, experimenting with these substances was I was like, wait, but I'm doing the same stuff. It just changes my, subjective experience of it. And what we're talking about is literally training that and conditioning it until it becomes more and more predominant in the body mind, right? In the what I would call, I get from an Eastern school, the doer, right? In the body mind, right? You're conditioning the body mind just to feel more and more that way because in the past it was habitually used to making different sets of chemicals.
Yeah, that's really interesting. When you drink and you're drunk, you still have the same car, you still have the same house, you still are in the same town. Nothing has changed except the lens that you're viewing the world, and then also the internal feelings that you have. And then you're just down a few bucks, but that's an interesting point.
Well, this is where Tony and Tony's whole business is state. I shouldn't say that. I mean, Tony does a lot, but what Tony really mastered was state and state control and how you actually wind up a lot of these things. And the thing, by the way, the word that we haven't used, but you've kind of used indirectly, is gratitude, is gratefulness. And for whatever reason, in all the spiritual literature and all these different places, a lot of it comes back to the power of gratefulness and gratitude. And I think that that's kind of the ultimate version of really giving yourself permission, because it's not saying, hey, I give myself permission to feel success, but it also goes a step further. It says, oh, I'm so grateful, to whatever your beliefs are. It might be, to God or the universe. It might just be grateful to be alive, But that emotion of gratefulness seems to be special as well for whatever reason.
Yeah. Question. I'm wondering if you think that usually people who are saying like, hey, trust me, money doesn't make you any happier, or hey, having this girl or this car doesn't make you any happier, but they've actually gotten to experience that. Do you think that you have to experience that in order to really feel that?
See, there's an interesting, ordinarily you say yes, right? But there's a very interesting concept that we use a lot in NLP, what are called convincers, which is what convinces your brain of something. So for instance, I may talk to a young person on Wall Street and they might say, well, yeah, that's your experience. I have to experience that myself. I might talk to someone else and they say, oh, I talked to 3 other people and they said the same thing, and that changed how I perceived my career. And so the answer is very individual ultimately, right? There's always a blanket answer, which is always the wrong one, but a decent generalization. But the right answer is it all depends on the person, which is what specifically convinces you. But a lot of it is true. And I'll be very honest with you too. You hit on it, which is I would never suggest money doesn't lead to happiness, or having material objects don't lead to happiness. I believe that there's a lot of apathy in the Eastern traditions. I believe a lot of those traditions are born of the fact that those people will never make their life better. So there is no hope in them. Whereas I believe in optimism, but that end state feeling. But also that notion, look, man, if you ain't got enough money, you're not going to do what you want. There's no freedom if you don't have financial freedom. It's very simple. You've got to, at the very least, take care of the money. The illusion, though, is that, hey, if I've, got 100 grand, or if I got $1 million or I got $10 million, that suddenly life is rosy. No, you just have different problems, but they're high quality problems, but they're problems. And you know what? If you're miserable and you've got $10 million, it doesn't matter. There's jokes about show up to your problems in a limousine and people laugh, but you're still unhappy. But look, it's necessary. You need to take care of the money. You're right.
I think that's a really interesting point you brought up about the Eastern philosophy, where I'm not sure the exact words you said, but maybe apathy. They have this philosophy. They have this apathy. They have this philosophy because they're not going to get out of that, or they may not have the means, or the system or the government or whatever it is may not even allow them to move up. Or whereas in the West, you can move up rather quickly, or historically.
That's why, man. I mean, that's why I just think that, to me, if you're going to take the journey through personal development, that you don't get attached to any particular school. I am a hypnotist. I am a trainer of NLP, but I don't identify as that. To me, they're tools, and they're incredible tools. In the same way that the Eastern philosophy and schools like Vedanta and Hinduism, to me, are schools of such immense knowledge. But if you can take all of these tools from psychology, from success, from sports, and bring them together, but very specifically in ways that you use them, right? So to me, it's like if you take that Eastern philosophy, one of the things that the apathy side of it is outcome independence. Hey, it doesn't matter if you win or lose, it's how you play the game, right? There's some really great wisdom to that, but not if you want to be a winner. Because it does matter how you play the game, but it does matter if you win, because you want to be at the center of the podium, when the medals are handed out. And so the apathy of, it's all in the process, but that's where the genius of the process is, right? And they're right, because if you're fixated on the outcome, you're not focused on just swimming every lap, on just improving every day. So it comes back to the process, but don't confuse that with giving up desire. The number of people who've got sucked into the Eastern philosophies and try and lecture me on desire and doing what you want, right? It's like they've been sucked into this, that desire is the problem. It's not. Desire is the gift. It's the greatest human gift, but it's the way we fixate on it. It's the way that we create this getting there, believing that our desire is unfulfilled, that we let the conscious mind create unmet needs. That's the problem.
And this comes back to your quote too about, carving your own path and leaving a trail. Like, you don't have to buy in 100% to what someone says. You can take bits and pieces of it and use the tools to create your own system that works best for your version of success.
You hit on it, man. Look, that's my whole thing, right? You hit on it, that's why I left Wall Street to do this. It's why I started writing the first book, which is it's all about your system. It's like you don't need thousands of pages of ideas. I wrote the one book that I wish someone had given me, which is how do you build your system? That's it. because you hit on it, which is, look, you don't need all these ideas. You need some ideas from, in my view, you need some ideas from NLP because you need to rewire your own brain. You need some ideas from the Eastern stuff because it helps you really process this stuff about fulfillment. Our Western society is so messed up by consumerism, right? Like, if you look at our definitions of success are so material that we're never introduced to anything else. But if you can bring all these together into your own system and your own philosophy, and you define success to be what matters to you, what I just call doing what you want, boom! I mean, what's not a formula in that?
Yeah. This is a really powerful conversation, and just want to dive into the knowledge round. Just going to ask you a few more questions here. So are you ready for the knowledge round?
Hit me.
Have you ever felt like you weren't the strong, grounded man that you know you're capable of becoming? Like there's something more inside of you, but you don't know how to get it out? Me too. Years ago, I was broke, sleeping on my brother's couch, and just got out of a serious breakup that left me on the floor for months. Now, I have a multiple six-figure business. I'm in the best shape of my life, have an abundant dating life, and live on the beach here in San Diego. I want you to break through too and create the life that you want. And because people kept asking me so many questions, I've created this free video training series on becoming a strong, grounded man so that you can have more freedom, love, and connection in your life. I'll also teach you how to build real backbone to boost your masculinity as a man so that you can have more respect, power, and confidence personally and professionally. Simply go to kfmconfidence.com to get this training. Again, that's kfmconfidence.com. Also, I share the number one conversation that your father never had with you about women. That will be a major wake-up call for 90% of you and will improve the quality of your relationships forever. Go to kfmconfidence.com to get this free training today. Welcome to the Knowledge Round, where the guests will be asked rapid-fire questions to give the audience invaluable pieces of wisdom to help transform their lives. Starting in 3, 2, 1, showtime. All right, the first question I have for you is, what advice would you give to someone who's feeling pretty lost about their purpose or in what direction that they should be going in?
Stop thinking about it. The number one lesson that I invented for myself when my mind was really messed up was what I call the number one rule of mind control. Only think about what you want, whatever it takes. And I know it's hard. That's why I'm into hypnosis, because I think a lot of this gets better done unconsciously. But that stuff, see, the way it happens is the brain goes into some shit room, if you will. And in the shit room, there's all those questions like, what am I doing with my life? What's the point? This is never going to work out. And in the shit room, they go and have a party in there and they never find their way out. And so my view is, as much as you can, man, you got to force yourself into that good room with the good questions and thinking about what you want.
Yeah, I like that. I think Tony Robbins says the quality of your life is the quality of the questions you ask yourself.
Totally.
What do you think is really holding most men back from becoming their strongest self?
Fear. It's always the same thing. Maxwell Maltz, I think, has a beautiful notion of self-image and person. Look, having read thousands of self-help books, I only come back to the top dozen or so. And, self-image is such a potent concept because it says I'm not that or I'm not good enough for that. But behind all this shit is fear, indecision, fear, resistance, fear. And look, I just love a lot of your philosophy about making mistakes, because the number one reason you make mistakes is to realize that they don't harm you, that you get up stronger, that you got to make mistakes to get better and all that stuff. But man, I can't yell it far enough, and it sounds politically incorrect because we like any answer other than I'm scared. But I'll be honest with everyone, I've been scared plenty, been scared a lot, and I just keep taking action, because what's your alternative? To live a life where you're not scared, where you're so protected that you're bored out of your brain every day. That's why we all do what we do.
Yeah. And you're talking about some classic books here. What would you say have been 3 of your most influential books, and why?
Oh, definitely Think and Grow Rich, Maxwell Maltz, and Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I mean, my view is, the old school books are just full of such incredible wisdom, but the hard path, the hard journey of personal development is to give up the shiny new book and master. Literally, my view is, if you just took Think and Grow Rich and mastered it, literally spent 10 years mastering that book, including doing all the exercises, rather than just picking up ideas and playing around. That's my view. You pick up great books and master them.
Yeah. I read, or I forget who says it, but he says instead of reading, I mean, I obviously read, this is over the course of my lifetime of books behind me, but where he says instead of trying to read 100 books a year, I just want to pick up 3 and master them this year. And I really like that. I really do like that. Really going back to the books that hit you hard and that do work.
And I'll come back to my system too, Andrew, which is the 5th step of the system is building skills. And here's the trick, right? It's not about reading books. This is where I think we all get lost in self-help. You read another book, so what? It's how do you integrate that book into your skills building system? So it's like, if your goal is to win more in your job, and that means selling, a lot of people that's selling indirectly or directly. Read a book on selling, but then every day train the skill of selling. So it's not knowledge. And I read something on your website. It's a Napoleon Hill quote, knowledge ain't power, right? And that's the whole point about mastery. Mastery is, knowledge in action. So take that knowledge, but build it into the system. So it's not just skills of like Dale Carnegie. It's, I just used that principle 5 times in the last month, and that's why I'm good at it now.
Yeah. I really like that. And so this is a scenario here for you. I think one of my favorite questions. And if you had 60 seconds with 25-year-old Geoff here, and you can think back to where he's at personally, professionally, in his relationships, and knowing what you now know now, what would you sit down and tell him if you're sitting down with 25-year-old Geoff?
Chill the fuck out, dude. Excuse my language, but chill out, like let it go. Like, don't take it so damn seriously. Like at the time, I had a girlfriend at the time and it was long distance. I just moved to San Francisco and it was all this stress about, is she the one? And, years later, this is why you can't tell our younger selves, hey, you know what? Life's really about experience. And I know you think you're really wise at 25, but you're not. And I can't tell you that. You'll only know it in hindsight. Look, in hindsight, I just see how some of the things, man, that I angsted over, that if I had seen it as a journey, and been able to live it that way versus what do I want? How do I get it? Like all that angst. I probably would have honestly done all the same things, but it would have been just so much more pleasurable. Just would have enjoyed it more. I would have just been so much more joyous in the journey. And I think, but I don't know how to imbue that into the 25-year-old while also saying, hey, but be as ambitious as fuck. Go for what you really want. Never give up on that. Because the older you get, the more you realize how many people did. Look around you at 25. 99% of them will give up. Even the ones who today think they're carving out their own path, fast forward 10 years, they will have given up. And never give up on that. Find that path because life's too short. But again, these things back then, how do you drum that into the 25-year-old kid? You hit on it before, I think, Andrew. Some of these things you have to experience for yourself, even when it's your older self telling you that maybe.
Yeah, I think a common answer people give is that they would just say everything's going to be okay and that you're going to fuck up a lot. And so with that girl, like I think that's a challenge a lot of guys have is around this age or of their mid-20s going into their mid-30s or wherever they're at, where they're wondering, is this the right girl? I don't know. Is it better if I break up with her? Is it better on the other side? Or is this the best that I'm ever going to get and I don't even realize it?
Yeah, that to me is, look, there's a lot of complexity to this topic because ultimately, you've got to get really deep for an individual. But, again, this is politically incorrect but true. Many people are with other people not because they want to be with them, but because they're terrified of being alone. Right? We all know that. Many people marry people because it is the right thing to do. There's momentum. They've been together since college, whatever, right? So there's a whole bunch of people who are going to follow the momentum. They're going to follow the fear of being alone. They're going to settle for someone who's a great partner, but maybe they're never really going to strive for that person who they fear might reject them or whatever. They'll stay in their comfort zone in their relationship. And I think that what you're playing around with to me is a metaphor for life, which is what sort of relationship do you want? Do you want that person where it's good and great sometimes, or do you want that person where it's so unbelievable that you couldn't have imagined you'd ever find someone like that? And then the challenge for a lot of us is, do you hold out for that person? Do you whatever? And, look, Andrew, this stuff has always been very, very easy for me, even if it was hard to execute on it, which is it's always been easy for me to say, I've got to go for what I want. And that means I've got to get over all the fears and whatnot that get you to cling to what you've got. Because my view with relationships, again, this is a view you get when you're older, but I've also spent many years thinking on these topics, is that if the answer is maybe with a woman or a man, the answer is already by default no. And it should be obvious, right? Like, if the answer is maybe, the answer is no, because it's not yes, right? Like, and what I mean by no is it's not yet. That at the very least says take time away from the person. But that creates all the fears. And then someone takes time away, they feel lonely. So if you're going to experiment, you've got to be willing to do the work. And my view is that's where, to be very honest with you, that's what I like about the pickup community. There's a lot I don't like about the pickup community, but my view is that if every man had the skills to meet women, then you would have much better relationships. One, the men in relationships are better. Once, by the way, they reach that point of maturity that most people in the community haven't reached, where they think it's all about banging some other woman, right? But once you get beyond that, you're a better man to a woman because you actually understand women. But most important, you built the skills to go find someone that you really want. See, this is where it's the same as your job. Hey, you want to build your online business or you want to build an offline business? It takes skills. Are you willing to invest in the skills, or do you settle for that job that 65% of people hate? And that's why, to me, I believe I'm a real purist of personal development, which is my stuff's all about goals and develop. It's not about mindset and planning and all this junk. It's about build yourself into the monster that can crush your goals. And it's all the same thing. Do you settle for your relationship that's good but not great? Or do you go for that woman you really want? Do you settle for your job that's fine? Or do you become the badass that can crush your goals?
I know, I love that. Build yourself into the monster that can crush your goals. And, it answers the question for not only myself, but for the thousands of guys listening. I think you know what you need to do, and you're scared of it, and that's why you need to go into it. This has been a fantastic show, Geoff. It's been a really good episode. How can the audience follow up with you moving forward from here? So what's the website? What's the social media? And where can they get the book?
Yeah, you can find me at Geoff Blades, Geoff Blades, BLADES.com. And all my stuff is Do What You Want. The first book was for Wall Street. How do you win? Wherever you are in your career, how do you get what you want? How do you take it as far as you can? And the book that we're just putting out now, where James Altucher actually was kind enough to put a quote on the front of the book. James Altucher said that if Choose Yourself is the guide to breaking out of the system, then this book is your guide to winning inside the system. And the notion of this book, man, is very simple. It says this: no matter what you want, you're going to get there from where you are now. So chart that course and use your career. You see, you hit on it before, which is a beef that I have is in all the entrepreneurial stuff. Quit your job, go da-da-da. No, what you need is a flight path. You need a guide path, which is I'm in my job. How do I maneuver this? How do I create the path to get there? It might take years. And that's what this stuff's all about to me. And the system is create your system, set the goal, create your plan, and every day get better and better and take an action. And you can get that, JeoffBlades.com.
JeoffBlades.com, and then you go to Amazon. You can type in Geoff Blades, and his books pop right up. You can click on, they're all there. And man, Geoff, this has been a fantastic episode here. What's exciting you now, kind of moving into the next year here? What's exciting on the horizon?
Oh, man, you know what I'm pumped up about is that these books, these career books, were the work I was doing 15 years ago. The book that I'm writing now is, and look, I create stuff that I needed. I wrote the book I wish I had been given, and I left Wall Street to do this because I wanted to share these ideas. And the hardest part of my journey has been doing this, leaving Wall Street and figuring out, hey, it's not about follow your passion. It's about how do you do that? It's about, one thing to say create an audience, but how's that a business? And how do you literally build yourself into someone who can do very, very hard things? And that book, which, has still got a working title on, but it's literally, to me, the most potent tools of human transformation. And how do you build it? How do you do it every day to become that person? See, this is a thing this is part of my philosophy, and I know it's right, even though it's hard to describe, which is it's not about goals. It's about that goal forces you to become that person. It's about ultimately becoming that person. It's like being at the gym. The goal isn't to say bench press 200 pounds. The goal is to show up every day and train your ass off and become the guy who can bench press 200 pounds. And when you're becoming that guy, that's the goal. The goal is that process of the goal. And so what I'm very focused on, though, is what are those tools? How do you do that? Because there's NLP, there's hypnosis, there's psychology, there's mindset, there's Napoleon Hill, there's The Secret, there's all that stuff. But what actually works? You know, most of it doesn't. And the stuff that does work, how do you get it to work? And how do you train yourself every day? You don't need a lot of knowledge. It's like 50 chapters, 1 year course, two practices a week. And I love it, dude, because I love to just focus on the stuff that I think is real. Look, the stuff that really challenges me. I want to create stuff that's to do really hard things that I needed to put together for myself because it's not out there. I think that's my job. You know, if we're not innovating, if we're not putting out new stuff or doing things that represent our story, then what are we doing?
Yeah. All right. JeffBlades.com and Jeff Blades on Amazon. Catch his books. I'm really excited that we did this episode. Wasn't sure where we were going to go. I just knew it was going to be an interesting story when you get an interesting guy on the mic here. And what a powerful show that we had. Jeff, thank you so much for sharing your story, being vulnerable, and sharing the lessons you've learned on your journey.
Thank you very much for having me. Really love to be here. And look, I know we're all asking these questions. The more we share this knowledge, the more we build communities around it, you know, the better off we all are.
Thank you for listening to the Knowledge for Men podcast. Hundreds of interviews and millions of downloads later, we're continuing to build an international movement, and we're just getting started. So if you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and leave a helpful review in iTunes because it really helps the podcast grow so we can impact even more men in the world who need this. Guys, this is all about living with purpose, where every day you only do things that matter to you. You wake up, live with purpose, and take massive action towards the life you want. And always remember, love the life you have while creating the life of your dreams. Go to kfmfree.com to get a surprise bonus I've made for my listeners. Again, that's kfmfree.com for something that's changed my life, and I'm offering it to you for free. Also, check out my Amazon best-selling books that I've written for you to help you crush life at kfmauthor.com. Again, that's kfmauthor.com to see all the books I've created to help you break through in life. This is your host, Andrew Farabee, founder of knowledgeformen.com, and I'll see you in the next episode.